6:50 time, and good to be with you guys. I'm Aaron Perlman. Sean Chandler from Sean Chandler Talks About has seen the brand new Superman movie. It comes into theaters Thursday night, but normally, Sean, I want to bring you into this. Normally, you've seen the movie, and I haven't. But I got to see it last night, too. So I'm coming off of a big high. One thing that I got from this movie, I think this is the most important summer film of the year. This is my opinion. Okay. But this is the most, when I say comic booky type of film, and I've seen a lot of reviewers say this is the most comic booky type of film, it is exactly that. What does that mean? Yeah, I just want thoughts right out the gate.
Yeah, I left the theater, and that's what I wrote in my tweet. It's the most comic booky live action movie that we've ever gotten. A phrase a lot of other people using is a comic book brought to life. But this sort of idea that it's not trying to anchor itself in our reality. You go back to Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, and that movie was very intentionally trying to have a grounded reality that you could find ways to make all of this believable. This film, Superman, isn't trying to do that. It's not afraid to get quirky, whimsical, lean into kind of pretty wild, weird sci-fi, and just embraces that. That's the world that's created, that it's this heightened reality that has flying dogs in it. Sometimes kaiju just show up in Metropolis. Superman just has robots. Lex Luthor is a mad scientist that can invent all sorts of crazy things, and that's just accepted. It doesn't try to justify any of it. It embraces and leans into that extreme kind of wild reality. And there's something very refreshing about a superhero movie that just leans into that.
You know, and you're right, because we even showed you a clip a second ago of the original Christopher Reeve Superman, and that even in itself is grounded in the sense it's in our world, this is what it is. But this movie, my wife went in going, this is going to be a cartoon that I'm going to watch in real life. And that's what it was. Knowing that, enjoyed it immensely. Immensely.
So if you've watched the old Superman the animated series from the 90s, Justice League Unlimited from 20 years ago, it's that in live action. And there's something about that that's really fun, where even most of these movies try and tell an origin story. Superman shows up and no one has ever seen anything like that before. That's not what this movie is. This is a movie where superheroes just exist, and all of this stuff is normal to the people in that world. We're the visitors that are like, wow, what's happening here?
And you're right. The world, that's the thing about this. The world building is incredible here, right out the gate. It's part of one of the characters. But Superman is all about Superman. And I think that's the best thing about this is that we spend, I would say, 85, 90% of the film with Superman. And in my opinion, I think this might be the best take on Superman since Christopher Reeve. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they're setting him up as the classic Boy Scout. He's written to be very naive in this refreshing sense of he's just so trusting that he believes the best in people. That's not subtle. That's like overtly part of the movie is that people see that about him, and he makes choices all throughout the film that are based on kind of like believing the best in everyone, even in situations where obviously he should not trust the people around him. He uses made up fake cuss words. He's like, oh, shucks, darn it. Like he does things like that. And there's just this very traditional nature about him, which is all classic Superman. In the movie, he's like really goes through it, but he's not a brooding character at all. He's a hopeful, optimistic character.
He very much is. In fact, all right, so we're going to bring you over on our Fox 58 newscast and talk a little bit more about that. In fact, because you brought up language, I was shocked to see how deep into that realm we go on the PG-13 rating, which is totally PG-13, but for the family friendliness on side of things. I want to get your take on that and so much more. I think this is the film people should be talking about for the summer movie blockbuster. That's coming up.
Absolutely.
Next hour on Fox 58. Sean, thanks so much for stopping by. David Corenswet steps into the blue and red spandex this summer. In fact, I saw it last night. Superman. It comes out officially Friday across the globe. James Gunn's version of Superman. Sean Chandler from Sean Chandler Talks About. You love to talk about movies, TV way too much. But Sean, you've seen this movie twice now. You're one of the rare few people to do this twice. Now that you've gone through it twice, what's your ultimate take? Is this the correct version that DC should be moving into, or should they have stayed in the Snyderverse?
Well, I think that this will be a more mainstream version of Superman, where like I really enjoy Zack Snyder's version, Man of Steel, and things like that. But Zack Snyder's very much spicy food. It's brooding, it's dark, it's deconstructing the mythos, and it didn't sit with a lot of people. It's not a crowd pleaser. It's challenging, and there's a lot of reasons that didn't work for people. And this is very much this hopeful, optimistic, fun version of Superman with lots of humor, a cute dog flying around. There's a lot of things that make this play to a much broader audience. And so I imagine that this will be embraced by a lot more people than Zack Snyder's version.
You know, that's a funny thing you said that. It reminded me of when I go back to the Avengers, right? There was a lot of fun, there's excitement. There's a little bit of that feel, I feel like, in this movie, because they brought in Joss Whedon to do Justice League. It didn't have that vibe. I feel like this movie has the vibe of what that originally was going for, that fun, especially because of crypto.
Right. Well, and it's being constructed from the ground up to be this lighthearted take that has the cute sidekick. It has an ensemble. I mean, Superman is absolutely the star here, but you also have the Justice Gang. So you have a team up aspect kind of going along in the film. It just has a lot of elements that that lend itself nicely to being kind of this big, broad, fun film. And that's what they were always going for. With like Joss Whedon on Justice League, that was something that he was brought in to try and course correct something that was very mature, dark, and grown up. And this was designed to be this film by one person. Same writer, same director.
Let's talk about the grown up stuff. You brought your kid to go see the film. What was his response to this? Is this his Superman? Did he, as a child, did he enjoy it?
Yeah, I took my 13-year-old son to see it. And, you know, he normally likes comic book movies, but they're not the thing that he goes completely wild and crazy for. We left the theater and he was much chattier about his opinions about this film than he is about most films. He really enjoyed it. He liked that it wasn't an origin story, that it kind of got right to the point in the action, doing very Superman stuff. He enjoyed all the quirky, weird stuff with robots, monkeys, flying dog. All those things were things that absolutely were to his taste. He did say that he thought that this was his favorite Superman movie. He's seen the Christopher Reeves films, so he was very positive on it.
Let me end with this. Fantastic Four comes out in 2 weeks. I want to know Sean Chandler's 4 fantastic superhero movies. What are they?
4 fantastic superhero. Let's go all back to 1978. We got to go. The original Superman movie that invented the genre, so you have to include that one in there. And then let's go Spider-Man 2002. That's the movie that really was the first big blockbuster of the modern era of comic book movies. X-Men came a couple years before that, but Spider-Man 2002, Sam Raimi's kind of opened this whole floodgates of just popularity. And then we will go, trying to balance these out a little bit. Let's go with The Dark Knight in 2008. Just one of the most celebrated comic book movies of all time, and the darker, grounded version of it. And
Number 4?
I just love that. Also love Batman Begins. And then close it out with Avengers 2012, the movie that with the MCU that did an actual team-up movie that everyone's been trying to copy ever since. It kind of gave us the jokes, the quippiness, all the stuff that has defined comic book movies for about a decade now.
I agree with you on that. Sean, underrated one. I appreciate that. And you can follow Sean Chandler at Sean Chandler Talks About on YouTube, Instagram, X, all the above. Sean, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.